Hello everyone! Tonight we will step into the shadows of the unknown, into a mystery that has haunted countless people across the globe. One that often begins in the silence of the night, when the mind drifts between wakefulness and sleep. This is the chilling phenomenon of the shadow people. Reports of these dark figures have surfaced from all corners of the world, from ancient cultures to modern experiences, and the eeriness lies not only in their appearance, but in their persistence. Generations separated by centuries describe beings that look strikingly similar, as though they are part of a hidden reality that exists alongside ours. Are they mere figments of imagination, psychological tricks of a tired brain? Or could they be real entities, visitors from another dimension who slip into our world under the cover of darkness? Let us first imagine the setting where many of these encounters begin. The room is quiet, the clock ticks faintly, and you find yourself in bed, caught between sleep and wakefulness. Suddenly, you sense a presence. You feel you are not alone. Then, from the corner of your eye, you see it. A dark silhouette standing at the edge of the room, motionless, faceless, and yet undeniably aware of you. Your body stiffens, your breath catches, and an icy fear runs through you. The figure does not move closer, but it does not vanish either, it simply watches. And then, in the blink of an eye, it's gone. This terrifying scenario has been reported by thousands of people, and almost every detail matches from one account to the next. The origins of shadow people sightings are not bound to our modern age. Historical records show that cultures across the world had their own names and interpretations for these figures. In the Middle East, old folklore spoke of the jinn, beings made of smokeless fire, who could shift between visibility and invisibility, sometimes appearing as dark shadows at night. In Europe, tales of night demons and dark watchers were told by villagers who swore that something lurked in the fields and forests once the sun had set. In ancient Egypt, the Ka was believed to be a spiritual double of a person, often seen as a shadow. Though interpretations varied, the central theme remained: a shadowy figure, human-like but not human, existing just outside the normal boundaries of reality. Modern-day interest in shadow people surged in the late 1990s and early 2000s, when radio shows like Coast to Coast AM began sharing chilling testimonies from people who encountered them. One of the most famous accounts came from a man named Heidi Hollies, who described not just shadow people, but a particularly frightening figure known as the Hat Man. This dark entity was described as taller, more defined, and always wearing a broad-brimmed hat. Unlike the fleeting shadows that vanished when confronted, the Hat Man seemed to linger, to observe, and sometimes to instill a deeper dread than anyone had ever experienced before. These stories were not just isolated whispers. They were part of a growing tapestry of unexplained encounters. Psychologists and scientists often attempt to explain these figures as hallucinations related to sleep paralysis, a condition where the body is temporarily frozen between waking and dreaming states. During these moments, the brain is active, but the body cannot move, and the person may experience vivid hallucinations. Commonly, these hallucinations involve dark shapes, threatening figures, or a sense of an intruder. While this scientific explanation may account for many sightings, it does not answer why so many of these visions share the same details, the same faceless silhouettes, the same aura of menace. Are our brains wired to produce the same image? Or is there truly something in the room during those paralyzed moments, taking advantage of our vulnerable state? Let us listen to some real-life stories that people have shared over the years. A woman from Texas recalled waking in the night to see a tall shadow figure leaning over her bed. Its face was featureless, but she could feel it staring. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. After what felt like an eternity, the figure dissolved into the wall. Shaken, she dismissed it as a nightmare, until her young son, weeks later, described seeing a shadow man in his own room. He said the man watched him while he tried to sleep. Another chilling case comes from London, where a man walking home late at night felt a coldness surround him. Glancing to his side, he saw a dark silhouette matching his stride. The figure was taller than him, unnaturally thin, and seemed to flicker in and out of reality. When the man finally stopped and turned to face it, the shadow vanished into thin air. But what exactly are shadow people? There are multiple theories, and none of them are entirely comforting. Some believe they are interdimensional beings, creatures who exist in a reality just parallel to ours. Occasionally, the barriers between worlds weaken, and they slip through. In this theory, their shadow-like form is not their true appearance, but rather the only way our minds can perceive them. Others suggest they are spirits of the dead, trapped between realms, unable to fully cross over. Then there are darker interpretations, which claim shadow people are demonic entities feeding on fear, drawing strength from the terror they create in their victims. The Hat Man, in particular, has stirred fear across the world. People who have encountered him often describe an overwhelming sense of dread, sometimes even physical illness afterward. Unlike fleeting shadows, the Hat Man seems intentional. He stands still, often in doorways or corners, and simply watches. Some people report that when they finally move or scream, he vanishes instantly, but the memory of his presence lingers for years. Strangely, people from completely different cultures and backgrounds describe this same figure with the same features, even before the stories became widely known on the internet. Beyond the Hat Man, there are categories of shadow people that witnesses have described. Some are short, darting figures that move quickly across rooms or hallways, like children playing in the dark. Others are larger, more imposing silhouettes that stand silently, radiating hostility. Then there are the fleeting shadows that pass by in the corner of one's vision, disappearing when looked at directly. Each variation carries its own weight of fear, and yet the common thread remains. These are not ordinary hallucinations, but experiences that feel deeply real, often accompanied by sensations of pressure, whispers, or a suffocating atmosphere. In fact, scientists have studied how fear is heightened in the brain during sleep paralysis. When the amygdala, the brain's fear center, is activated while the body is frozen, the mind may project a threatening presence into the environment. But if this is the case, why do so many people independently describe identical shadow figures? Why the consistency across time, geography, and culture? This is the question that leads many to believe something more is at play. Some paranormal researchers claim that shadow people are scouts or watchers. Their job is not to attack, but to observe, as though studying us. This theory links to the idea of extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings. Perhaps they are monitoring humanity, slipping in and out of our world under the cover of night. Their form as shadows could be an adaptation, a way of disguising themselves or blending with our perception. Others believe that encounters with shadow people are warnings. They may appear during times of great stress, tragedy, or impending death, not as causes but as omens. The unsettling truth is that no single explanation fully satisfies the mystery. For every scientific answer, there are hundreds of personal experiences that defy logic. Some victims even report physical interactions, being touched, pushed, or whispered to by these dark figures. Others experience a draining of energy, waking up exhausted after an encounter. In some cultures, people believe shadow people can even attach themselves to a person, following them from place to place, feeding off their fear like parasites of the soul. To understand this further, we can look back at cultures where shadow entities were feared. In Hawaiian tradition, the night watchers were said to be spirits of ancient warriors, seen as dark silhouettes moving in groups. In Native American folklore, shadow beings represented restless spirits or unfinished business in the human world. In medieval Europe, dark apparitions were often linked to witchcraft or demonic forces. It is chilling to realize that across civilizations, across time, humans have always had stories of shadowy figures lurking just beyond the firelight, just beyond the edge of safety. This raises a profound question. Do shadow people represent a universal archetype of fear, something hardwired into the human psyche, or do they reveal a truth about the unseen layers of our reality? When so many unrelated people share the same vision, is it coincidence, psychology, or genuine contact with beings we cannot fully comprehend? Picking up where we left off, the question remains, who, or what, are these shadow people? While Part 1 explored historical accounts, folklore, and psychological explanations, Part 2 dives deeper into the most chilling encounters, scientific investigations, and spine-tingling theories that push the boundaries of reality itself. One of the most famous cases comes from a man named Joe, who in 1997 experienced repeated visits from shadow figures in his home in Chicago. At first, they appeared at the edges of his visions, small, dark shapes that seemed to dart around corners. Over time, the encounters intensified. He would awaken to find them standing silently by his bed, their faceless forms motionless, watching him. Joe reported a sensation of extreme dread, as if the very air around him had thickened. Despite sleeping in a well-lit room and checking for intruders, there was never a tangible presence, just the figures flickering in and out of reality. This case was widely studied by paranormal researchers, who noted that Joe was otherwise healthy, had no history of sleep disorders, and no evidence of hallucinations due to drugs or illness. Another documented phenomenon involves the Hat Man. Unlike fleeting shadows, the Hat Man seems deliberate and intelligent. Witnesses consistently describe a tall, humanoid silhouette wearing a wide-brimmed hat, appearing at doorways near windows or at the edge of a room. In many cases, people report feeling paralyzed or physically unable to move while the Hat Man watches. Some believe the Hat Man is a warning entity, an omen signaling danger or impending death. Others suspect he is a malevolent being feeding on fear. Strangely, there are accounts of people seeing the Hat Man in public spaces, not just in private homes, suggesting these beings are not confined to one environment. Sleep paralysis remains one explanation for many of these experiences. During REM sleep, the brain temporarily paralyzes the body to prevent acting out dreams. If someone partially awakens during this state, the brain can misinterpret shadows, noises, and physical sensations as external threats. The amygdala, responsible for fear response, can trigger intense terror, producing hallucinations of dark figures. This might explain the sensation of pressure on the chest, a common symptom reported during shadow people encounters. However, this theory doesn't account for shared experiences, such as children describing the Hat Man before the phenomenon became widely known, or multiple people in different locations seeing similar figures independently. Some scientists have explored environmental factors. Certain studies suggest that magnetic fields, carbon monoxide poisoning, or even high-frequency sounds can influence perception and induce hallucinations. While these factors could explain some reports, the consistency of descriptions, timing, and context across cultures remains puzzling. If shadow people were purely environmental or neurological, wouldn't their appearance vary more widely? Paranormal researchers propose interdimensional theories. In this framework, shadow people exist in a parallel reality, a layer of existence slightly out of phase with ours. Occasionally, weak points between dimensions allow them to slip through, appearing as dark, human-like silhouettes to our limited perception. Their facelessness might be a side effect of their true forms being incomprehensible to the human eye. The theory also explains their apparent ability to appear and vanish instantaneously, as though moving in ways our physical laws cannot account for. Some encounters have gone beyond the visual. People report tactile sensations, hearing whispers, or sensing a cold presence. Others describe a sensation of time distortion, where minutes feel like hours during the encounter. In rare cases, witnesses claim to have been physically restrained or pushed. These experiences suggest that if shadow people are not figments of the mind, they may interact with our reality in ways that defy conventional understanding. Cultural interpretations provide another layer of intrigue. In Haiti, shadowy figures are associated with spirits known as LWA, intermediaries between the living and the dead. In Japan, similar beings are called Kage no Hito, ominous presences that forewarn disaster. Native American traditions speak of dark watchers in the forests, guarding sacred spaces or punishing disrespect. Across continents and centuries, these entities share traits: darkness, human-like shape, silent observation, and often a warning or malevolent intention. The Hat Man phenomenon alone deserves deeper scrutiny. Researchers have noted that sightings increased dramatically in the 1990s and 2000s, coinciding with the rise of electronic media. Some speculate that awareness amplifies the phenomenon. Once a person learns about the Hat Man, they become more likely to see him. Others argue that this is a form of collective perception, or even a psychic resonance with unknown energies. The consistency of reports, however, cannot be easily dismissed. Shadow people also appear to respond to attention. Many witnesses report that when they focus on the figure, it disappears. When ignored, it lingers. This behavior suggests intelligence and awareness, unlike random hallucinations. Furthermore, some researchers claim that these entities may be attracted to fear and emotional vulnerability, feeding off the energy generated by human terror. This aligns with accounts where people undergoing trauma report more frequent sightings. Another chilling hypothesis is that shadow people may act as interdimensional observers. In this theory, humans are being quietly studied, their actions monitored by beings from a parallel universe. The faceless form is intentional, preventing recognition while maintaining observation. This theory links to broader ideas in quantum physics, including the multiverse hypothesis, suggesting that multiple realities exist simultaneously and occasionally intersect. Shadow people could be a glimpse into this hidden layer of existence. Some encounters defy explanation entirely. One witness described a group of shadow figures moving as a collective intelligence, synchronized in movement, almost like a single organism. Another person reported a shadow stepping into their room from a wall, crossing through solid matter as though it were not there, and then vanishing. These events challenge the laws of physics as we understand them, hinting that our world may be far stranger than we imagine. Not all shadow people are hostile. Some are merely watchers, appearing without interaction, while others seem curious. There are reports of figures retreating when spoken to, or fading away peacefully. This raises the question: are these beings morally aligned in ways we cannot understand? Or do our perceptions assign intent where none exists? Skeptics remain unconvinced. They argue that the human brain seeks patterns and explanations, projecting meaning onto random stimuli. Pareidolia, the tendency to see familiar forms in shadows, could account for some sightings. Fear, stress, and trauma can also amplify ordinary shadows into terrifying experiences. Yet, while skepticism explains individual incidents, it struggles to account for global consistency, cross-cultural accounts, and the detailed reports of tactile and environmental phenomena. A particularly disturbing theory links shadow people to near-death experiences (NDES). People who have survived cardiac arrest or severe trauma often describe seeing dark humanoid figures during their liminal state between life and death. Some researchers suggest these entities are drawn to the threshold of life, monitoring transitions between consciousness and the beyond. If true, shadow people may represent a force that exists outside the normal boundaries of human experience, glimpsed only during moments when our perception is heightened or altered. Ultimately, the mystery of shadow people touches on fundamental questions about reality, consciousness, and existence. Are these beings products of the mind, remnants of ancient spirits, interdimensional observers, or something entirely beyond comprehension? The evidence is elusive, the experience is subjective, yet the consistency and longevity of reports make this a phenomenon that cannot be dismissed lightly. For centuries, humans have feared what lurks in the darkness, and the shadow people embody that fear. They appear at the edge of perception, faceless and silent, evoking primal terror. Whether they are real entities, psychological projections, or glimpses of parallel dimensions, their presence challenges our understanding of reality and reminds us that the world is far stranger than it appears. As night falls and shadows stretch across your room, consider this. If the corner of your eye detects movement, if a shape lingers too long in the darkness, you may not be imagining it. Something may be watching, waiting, observing you from beyond the veil of our dimension. The question remains, will you confront it or look away and hope it disappears? Shadow people are a reminder that the unknown is never truly empty, that darkness may conceal more than the absence of light. Whether they are visitors from another dimension, spirits, or figments of our own minds, the mystery endures. They are always there at the edge of vision, waiting in silence, faceless, yet unmistakably real. And so, the phenomenon of shadow people continues to haunt, terrify, and fascinate us, bridging the worlds of science, psychology, folklore, and the paranormal. The more we seek to understand them, the more they reveal the limits of our perception, reminding us that reality may be far more layered and enigmatic than we dare imagine.